Parce que ce qui nous anime, ce qui nous transcende, ce qui nous fait porter la réassurance aux frontières du possible et au-delà, notre mission, notre vision, nos valeurs, c'est ce que l'on a de plus précieux, notre monde. Et si nous bâtissions ce monde uni pour un futur plus prospère, positif, radieux, responsable, généreux, altruiste, sûr, si nous marquions le monde de demain de notre empreinte, créateurs de résilience depuis 1960, nous avons une vision, devenir la référence de la réassurance dans les marchés émergents. Depuis notre création, nous tirons vers le haut notre ambition pour répondre aux exigences de nos clients et partenaires au Maroc et à l'international. Leader de la réassurance au Maroc, nous marquons de notre empreinte l'économie nationale en jouant un rôle central dans l'écosystème de l'assurance et de la réassurance au niveau national et régional, et en étant une institution financière solide, bénéficiant d'un excellent rating. Opérant dans plus de 50 marchés avec plus de 300 clients, nous mettons en avant notre savoir-faire, notre expertise afin d'offrir à nos clients et partenaires la meilleure prestation. Nous visons à être inspirés et inspirants, à partager notre savoir-faire, à accompagner de par le monde à travers la fondation LCR Académie Ré, les idées qui viennent d'éclore vers le chemin des réalisations dont nous sommes si fiers. SCR, créateur de résilience depuis 1960.
Malgré toutes nos différences, il y a tellement de choses qui nous rapprochent. Comme la passion qui nous unit d'une même voix, ou quelques mots qui, sans parler, disent tout. Quand la confiance est là, compter ne compte plus.
Ah, on va dire l'anglais. C'est un deux, essaye. C'est un deux. C'est un deux, essaye. C'est un deux.
Atlanta Sana d'assurance, la vie nous rapproche.
Bonjour et
good morning and welcome to you wherever you may be at this.
pas manquer.
Good morning and welcome to the Casablanca Rendezvous. And this is a big event where usually we all meet in a huge room in Casablanca, and you come from all over the world to meet us. Well, we're going to be able to work this year by adjusting and adapting to the situation. So we are in the insurance world, and this world does know how to manage risks. The organizers took all the precautions for the sanitary measures and safety and security measures to be met and to be respected. So we're going to get started in a couple of minutes, but I just wanted to urge you to get ready behind your computers in a very relaxed manner and very attentive and careful way. And we're going to be listening to our keynote speakers, and you're going to be able to ask them any question to the speakers are going to be sharing with us the 2 upcoming days and talk about insurance in a changing world. So this year the theme is resilience and change. And I'd like to acknowledge the Federation of Insurance and Reassurance that has spared no efforts and has been very innovative to keep us posted with the insurance world in Morocco and around the globe. So in this opening speech, and before hosting the officials and senior officials that are with us, and I'd like to thank them for their presence, I'd like to thank Mr. Bashir Badou for his great organization. Thank you, Mr. Tami. Thank you to you and to all the teams to make this gathering possible and make sure that we're all gathered and we are here despite all the sacrifices and all the challenges. So how many participants do we have to really give us food for thought? Well, Mr. Tami, in the virtual world, we have 1,300 participants. So we are very, very happy to have these many subscribers and people that have logged in. But I'm in the real world here. And this is a very brief and very limited opening ceremony with all the health and sanitary measures. So we're very, very happy to see you all in this gathering of Casablanca, insurance events of Casablanca. So we're going to be listening to the experts and to the officials. But before welcoming them, the theme of this year is the inclusion and resilience to pandemic. This is a global challenge that we are addressing here at the national level. Is that right? Well, let me surprise you. The inclusion in insurance is something that has been going on and has been spoken about in the whole world. What does it take? Inclusion. It really brings people from the uncovering to the covering. And we have a lot of economic agents who are not covered by the insurance scheme. So this is very critical for us to make sure that they're all covered. And this theme should have been covered, well addressed last year. So this is the time that we're going to be speaking. And this theme, we're going to be at the very heart of our discussion. 1,300 participants. Where do they all come from? Well, from all over the globe. We have people from Morocco, 120 people from the African continent. So we had 120 people from Europe, but we also have people from North America, from Latin America, from all 4 or 5 continents. So we are in the very pure tradition of the Casablanca insurance events. It has become, without being pretentious, a global event. And just to let you know that there is simultaneous interpretation. So if you need translation and interpretation, pick up the language you need, and you're going to be interpreted, and you're going to be helped by the interpreters. Mr. Bashir Badu, a lot of efforts, a lot of work, a lot of speakers, like usual, but they are scattered around the world. Well, the digital world imposes us a different formats. We are having 2 half days with keynote speakers coming from all over the world, from huge and leading world federation, and we are one of them actually. And the president of our federation is going to be making the opening speech of the ceremony. And we have presidents of key leading insurance federations, but also African insurance presidents. They have going to give us a feedback on what they have experienced on the during the COVID, and in terms of financial inclusion. We have like leading world insurance companies, global ones. Why do we bring them all over on board? To really have a sense of their experience of what it is that they have felt and gone through this year. Also, countries like Morocco, Latin America, emerging countries, and some countries are well ahead on some on this very insurance inclusion. But we're still we also have very interesting experiences to share. We also have kind of unique, atypical type of insurance players, and they have really started insurance inclusion with mobile phones. They have fostered the insurance inclusion with mobile phones. So this is really great to hear from them, hear their experience and feedback, and learn from them. Just a question. Generally, with these insurance, major insurance events, or Rendez-vous of l'assurance, we host it at the Hyatt Casablanca. And normally we get together in stands, coffee stands, etc. So what did you plan for this event? Well, the Rendezvous of Casablanca is about a lot of B2B, a lot of businesses and encounters and matching in the insurance world. So we do have stands in the virtual world, and the exhibitors have been so ingenious, and I really urge you to go and see them and have a look and check it out. There are videos explaining the products of the companies, and there are also possibilities to take rendezvous and appointments. And there are video conferences in margin of our events. So I just urge you all to, and urge the participants to actually take a pause, take a break, and go and check the exhibitors. So thank you for your kind words. So now we're going to welcome our keynote speakers, and I would like to urge you to welcome Mr. Ben Salah, the president of the Moroccan Federation of Insurance and Reinsurers. Mr. President, you have the floor.
Merci. Thank you. In the name of God the Almighty, the Merciful, the Most Compassionate, Mr. Minister, Mr. Secretary General, Mr. the President of the Association of the Insurance Companies of Cameroon, we are sending you our greetings from the other side of the screen, your screen. Ladies and gentlemen, my very dear colleagues and friends, to all those who are with us in this room, to everyone who is in this room, and to those who are following us behind the screen, I am delighted to welcome you for the 7th edition. When one reflects on the world in which we have tilted since March 2020, we realize the profound transformations that our society has experienced in such a short time. We work differently, we consume differently, and we think differently. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought to light the fragility of some development models and has called us back to our deeply rooted humanity. It has imposed on individuals and organizations the need to reinvent themselves in order to survive in an environment, in order to survive in an environment where the digital age has become the rule. The insurance industry has also been upset by the health crisis. This crisis, in fact, made us realize, if any, that our conventional model based on the pooling of risks could falter in the face of a global event. This virus has also taught us that the human adventure is not immune to uncertainty. The good news, to stay positive in passing, the good news is that this crisis has actually been instrumental in spurring the digital transformation of our sector and has bought us several years. Unfortunately, regrettably, the economic crisis sparked by the pandemic has not spared the insurance sector and industry, though today our industry seems to be less affected by the crisis than other sectors. The real impact, I'm sure, the real impact of this health crisis will not be felt before 7 months, not to say several years later. The COVID-19 pandemic is heralding a new era. Insurers can no longer afford to take their time to reinvent themselves and to transform. Customers are watching on us. They are more exacting, more connected. We therefore have to expect the emergence of new risks in the years to come, whether they are technological, environmental, or political. And anecdotally, the Canal of Suez, you see that just a small drop in the big ocean has kind of blocked the world over. And we have to use the lessons of this health crisis to brace ourselves to that. This pandemic has really shown us that the classical risks cannot impact or dampen the financial impact. One of our today's most challenges is to take stock of these risks, examine them, and design coverage models capable of protecting individuals and organizations without endangering the very balance of our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, in Morocco, in the face of the scale of the health crisis, our industry took it upon itself to contribute to the national effort to combat the pandemic and to mitigate its repercussions. Besides contributing to the special fund created by His Majesty the King to set up and deal with this crisis, we are committed to work along with the public authorities to support the economic recovery. Without going into detail, numerous measures have also been taken to help our network and also to the attention of our policyholders. We were duty-bound to stand by our customers, our partners, and our nation during this difficult period, and we wouldn't have been able to promptly address the difficulties encountered had it not been for the support of our supervisory authority, which in passing I would like to thank. I would like to avail of this opportunity to wish Mr. Hassan Boubrik all the best in his new mission and assignment at the head of the National Social Security Fund, the CNSS. Our industry fully supports the project of generalizing the social protection in Morocco, and we stand fully ready to provide our contribution and expertise, particularly in the supplementary health insurance plans. This is maybe a subliminal message, but I think we all understand ourselves. Now, over the years, the Moroccan insurance sector has managed to improve its indicators by enhancing the solvency of its players and the coverage of their underwriting liabilities. And it is through our strong fundamentals that we have been able to remain resilient in 2020, all despite the challenging environment. The non-life insurance business premiums grew by about 3%, while life insurance business stood up well with only a slight dip. Now, this somewhat positive picture should not blind us on the problems faced by the industry, our industry, during this exceptional year, more particularly regarding the collection of premiums and the depreciation of our assets. Now, because of the drop of the financial markets, the insurance companies have lost about 30% of their unrealized capital gains during the year 2020. This substantial, if any, decrease could have been worse had it not been for the remarkable work done by the Ministry of Economy and Finance and the Central Bank in fighting this crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, the very choice of the theme of this edition of the Casablanca Insurance Days has thus become inevitable. It is clear that our industry cannot ignore the lessons learned from the health crisis. on the other hand, never had the issues of inclusive insurance been so topical, in particular in view of the magnitude of the socio-economic crisis that we are suffering. Insurance can actually make a difference by helping households become more resilient and promoting entrepreneurial activity. The uninsured risks are undeniably a drag on the socio-economic growth. In Morocco, the national financial inclusion strategy is well underway, and the roadmap of the insurance aspect is being currently rolled out. First experience have seen the light of the day, and we can commend ourselves on that. They are already on top of the other achievements undertaken and initiated several years ago by the insurance companies in partnership with the microcredit associations. The conventional distribution channels are not always adapted to microinsurance. Indeed, then we must think out of the box and be inspired by successful international experiences. The challenge here is to draw the right line between microinsurance and the conventional insurance, and to keep the traditional networks as the reference distribution channels for provident and damage insurance, which require both expertise and counseling and advice. Ladies and gentlemen, for our federation, the strong continental orientation and calling has been always a priority. After Tunisia, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Tanzania, and Mali, we are now adding a new dimension to the cooperation between our market and the Cameroonian market. I wish to thank this opportunity to greet our Cameroonian colleagues who are following us by video conference, and at the head of whom my counterpart, Mr. Moulin. Now, the Casablanca Insurance Days is also an interesting opportunity to interact with the Global Federation of Insurance Association, and Mr. Forgeron, his president, who is going to start work this afternoon. He will be followed later by Mrs. Neely, the Chief Executive Officer of the American Council of Life Insurers. Among the other speakers are Mrs. Traoré, the president of the African Insurance Association organization, Mr. Lusman, the French Insurance Federation president, and Mr. Badoya, the president of the South American Insurance Federations. I expect many of you will also follow the speech of Mr. Jack Attali due tomorrow afternoon with his well-known speaking style. A special thank to all of the speakers, and I wish us a great conference. Thank you for your kind attention.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for these introductory remarks. And I'm not from the insurance sector, but I simply would like to say that your subliminal message definitely reached my mind. So I'm sure that those that are part of your target market also received it very well. I also would like to ask you to welcome the Minister of Finance and Mr. Mohamed Ben Chaboun. Welcome, Mr. Honorable Minister.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Wali of the Central Bank of Morocco, the BAM, Mr. President of CAPS, Mr. President of the Moroccan Federation of Insurance and Reassurance, Mr. President of the Cameroon Federation of Insurance, honorable directors, presidents, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it is a great pleasure. It's my great pleasure to meet you again today for this insurance Casablanca event. And I'd like, in this regard, to thank and congratulate the Federation and its president, Mr. Ben Salah, for the choice of the themes that are, as every year, in every edition, very important, and namely in this world crisis that we are witnessing under the high patronage of His Majesty the King Mohammed VI, granted to this event, is a testimony of the importance and interest given by the state to the insurance world and sector that is playing a key economic role. It should be further forged and strengthened in upcoming years to accompany and assist all the major government projects in terms of financial inclusion and financing of the economy. And I'd like to also acknowledge and congratulate ourselves for the very strong involvement of Africa in this event, and highlight that the country had the honor today and this year, Cameroon, a friend country and brother country with whom Morocco has been weaving a very strong relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, the digital format of our meeting does show the very strong impact of COVID-19 on our daily businesses. This crisis has majorly challenged health and well-being of people and individuals that have weighted strongly and heavily on the world economy. Let me, if I may, remind you some of the measures conducted by the Kingdom of Morocco to confront and overcome the challenges of the crisis. Of course, Morocco hasn't been spared by the drawbacks of the pandemic, despite the drastic measures that were taken very early under the instruction of His Majesty the King to prevent us and to protect us through a very strong confinement, closing down of our borders as early as mid-March. Now, the vaccination campaign launched under the very high instructions of His Majesty the King is paving some way for hope and light in terms of seeing the light in the tunnel. So a series of measures have been installed and carried out aiming at supporting the sectors that have been heavily impacted. So this pandemic has led to a great shock and has had negative drawbacks on the productive sectors and on the economy in general ways. The measures that were taken in the framework of the Economic Watch Commission that has been set up in March 2020 have led to mitigating the confinement shocks and have led to allowing the survival of some companies and preserve jobs and laborers during the very low activity period and stop of activity. Let me, if I may, remind you the three pillars that we have used to support the enterprises. First, state subsidies for families and households that have suffered majorly through the special fund of management of coronavirus created and set up under the high instructions of His Majesty, and has benefited from a very strong and unprecedented solidarity of the population, reaching for almost $4 billion. The main measures have targeted wage owners who were registered at Social Security, households working in the informal sector, and enterprises, namely very small enterprises, SMEs, and VSEs that have benefited from exceptional and unique grants subsidized by the state and guaranteed by the state through a range of mechanisms that were tailor-made for the period and the situation. These measures were targeting wage owners that were stopped or prevented from working temporarily and have benefited from a subsidy for loss of their jobs, and the amount was of 2,000 dirhams in addition to salary and family fee and obligatory medical coverage. Also targeting people working in the informal sector that have benefited from aid and help, and also 2,000 people that have also benefited from postponing the payment of the credits and their loans to the banks. And the second big chapter was including the enlargement of the Social Security to cover all the citizens. The coronavirus pandemic showed the importance to overcome and really the gaps of Social Security to prevent future crises. So His Majesty Majesty the King called for the extension of the social security and medical coverage to all Moroccan citizens. And this is why Morocco has adopted a law that provides for the obligatory medical coverage before the end of 2023, the generalization and extension of family pension funds and pension and retirement funds. So this major project is based on the extension of the social security systems and also protecting part of the population, and also is used and is really based on the state subsidies. The second chapter consisted in the economic recovery plan to bring down the slowdown of the economy and the unemployment challenges. And this led to a recovery plan providing for the injection of 120 billion dirhams through two specific mechanisms, one lying on the new guarantee mechanisms and guaranteed by the state with a very strong and deep reform of our guarantee and subsidy plan at the benefit of the private sector, well, with the mobilization of $8 billion through banking credits to help the states. In order to accompany this extension, the National Guarantee Pension Fund has been turned into a limited company that will put these guarantee on their balance sheet with their insurance coverage and a surveillance mechanism by the central bank. The second mechanism lies on the setting up of the Mohammed VI fund for investments. And this is clearly a strong willingness of the state to boost the economy centered on the correction of the dysfunctioning and filling the gaps in the economy. This fund's aiming at mobilizing $45 billion dirhams, almost $5 billion, a third of which come from the state subsidy. It is a public intervention helping enterprises and starting viable infrastructure projects with long-term funds, with private equity and private assets. If I may, as the president did before, I'd like to call on the insurance and reinsurance Moroccan companies to really get involved in this momentum, and also kind of increase the fund, Mohammed V, and reaching hopefully a greater momentum for SMEs. In order to finance a profitable economy and to help the overall economic boosting in the post-crisis period. Ladies and gentlemen, in this context of crisis exit and economic recovery, the priority granted to economic inclusion has been highlighted, as it is showed by the strong and very important sector of social security. And this really helps in mitigating the poverty gaps and also including everyone in the health sector. So 3 decades ago, Morocco has already started this process and really realized the very major challenges on the banking sector, and has started the chapter of modernizing the treasury. And in early 2000, the insurance compartment started its change in motion, and to become today one of the most performing compartments of our financial sector. Currently, our strategy for the financial sector lies on 3 main strategic pillars or sectors. First, the deepening the financial market by diversifying the instruments to the benefit of investors. Also, promotion of financial inclusion with the central bank in order to turn it into a true social and economic leverage for development, and financial inclusion for the long-term development process. As you know, the objective and purpose of financial inclusion is to allow a greater number of households and companies to have access, or access the financial that is easier and more affordable to financial services. Several studies conclude that there is a very strong correlation between financial inclusion and reduction of poverty. Morocco, very early, was aware of all challenges relating to financial inclusion and started a national strategy of financial inclusion in collaboration with the central bank, with the purpose to turn the financial inclusion into a catalyst of economic inclusion of all targeted categories and population groups, namely rural population, women, and youth. In order to achieve this objective, the strategy has covered the orientations that should be as a guideline of our decision makers in order to promote financial inclusion, economic inclusion, and promoting the role of all population groups in the development of the country, namely strengthening the role of classical financial mechanisms and promoting adapted type of roles for excluded populations, and also using the fintechs. Coming back to the insurance inclusions and resilience to pandemics, or how the insurance sector could contribute to financial inclusion and make it more resilient to crisis, be it classical, incumbent, or new, like pandemic or climate change. The inclusive insurance, and more importantly, the micro insurance, is one of the most important leverages to the extent where it actually covers and reaches the most vulnerable population risks, population groups to risks. Insurance inclusion can also play a major role and can develop very quickly thanks to new technologies that can contribute to reinvent new forms of social protection, meeting the new needs of jobless people that would start their companies and that would benefit from modest pensions, or workers that are not very highly qualified and that could suffer from money fluctuations. So this insurance inclusion could target the population that does not have access to traditional insurance schemes. The insurance world can work in more active world in the promotion of all sectors, social sectors that I referred to earlier, through the setting up of complementary social schemes or insurance schemes, namely in the health sector or pension or retirement plans, or through labor insurance and professional insurance. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to be holding a meeting on insurance inclusion, bringing together public and private companies engaged in this strategy. During this meeting, many measures will be taken note of and enacted. Some would actually cover your sector, aiming at insurance inclusion by using through two new distribution channels like payment institutions, digital and mobile payment. Other more structuring measures for the promotion of insurance inclusion will be introduced in the new amendment of the insurance code, with the aim to really promote, legally speaking, these products where other products would be included. Now, in terms of insurance inclusion in pandemic and climate change, I'd like to also inform you of the enforcement in 2020 of insurance or climate insurance risks that will prevent the population from major climate and global challenges, to protect the people and population from pandemic or risks related to climate change and drought and flooding. So the pandemic has showed clearly that we cannot afford overlooking these risks, because their likelihood is low, of occurrence is low, and we cannot go on without taking on board their reality. And these risks are very, very high, costly, and they should be integrated in our development model. A reflection is going on within the government to come up with new coverage regimes against emerging risks like pandemic, cyber risks, and droughts. The insurance sector is naturally the main and leading partner that rely on to achieve this major project, like the PPPs that has led to the setting up of coverage risks against natural disasters. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to close my words by reiterating my congratulations and acknowledgments to the Moroccan Federation of Insurance and Reassurance for choosing this very critical theme, and would like to wish you a very huge success to your proceedings. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for these opening remarks and also for these announcements that you've made regarding the next steps that will lead to inclusion in the field of insurance. So, ladies and gentlemen, we also have the pleasure of having here with us the Wali of Bank al-Maghrib, Mr. Abdel Shwari. Thank you for being here with us, and it was a great pleasure that we'll have a chance to listen to your presentation. So I am here remotely, but I have closely monitored or followed what the Honorable Minister of Finance has said. So the Honorable head of the FMSAR, the Honorable President of the Moroccan Federation of Insurance and Reinsurance Companies, Honorable Chair of the Insurance Association from Cameroon, Honorable Chairs, ladies and gentlemen, I first of all would like to thank the organizers, in particular, Mr. Mohammed bin Saleh, the President of the Moroccan Association of Moroccan and Reinsurance Companies, for having invited me to this insurance meeting. I am delighted that it is maintained despite the fact, despite these times, and at least, well, having this meeting virtually is maybe a signal of a sort of return to normal, despite the fact that it's a new normal. So I'd like to congratulate them for this decision and also for the choice of the theme, which is extremely relevant given the current context. I have no doubt that the discussions will be very rich, and the list of speakers is extremely impressive, both in terms of quality and diversity. This is an observation which that I must say this is something that this forum has truly made a habit, or something standard since the beginning of the creation of this forum. So the crisis has led to major challenges that need to be addressed, but in parallel also provide major opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, just like everywhere else in the world, we have just experienced a year like no other that was marked by a multifaceted crisis that was extremely deeply rooted. If the repercussions of this pandemic were to extend over to the next coming year, so after 1 year after it started, we can see the economic and social impact. And I think that now we can draw the first lessons learned. So the crisis has allowed us to measure the scope of the vulnerability that many large portions of the productive sector have suffered from, and in particularly large sectors of the large fringes of the population, especially those involved in the informal sector. This has recalled to which extent it is necessary to strengthen the economic and social resilience of our country. This is an imperative which has become a priority for Bank al-Maghrib, and especially in the framework of the last report published by the bank. And in fact, this was one of the most recurring recommendations in forums and international debates over the past few months. And so during a meeting organized in July 2020 by the Paris Forum and the Saudi chairmanship of the G20 and the IMF president chair qualified resilience, and I quote, a new religion of the International Monetary Fund. Investment in resilience is a part of a prospective long-term approach. And the idea is to go from a mode of action that I would call a fireman that is acting after the fact to another more anticipatory and preventive approach. It should be applied and generalized to all fields and should benefit all categories of the population. And this is what will make it possible to ensure the inclusive character of our development. So the concept of inclusion has, first of all, been put forward from a macroeconomic level to draw the attention to the fact that economic growth is not automatically equal to the improvement of conditions of life and reduction of inequalities. It is only fair when it benefits all fringes of the population. This is when we can call it inclusive. This concept was later transposed to many other fields, such as that of finance, with the development, for example, of microfinance and inclusive insurance. Inclusive insurance, in fact, is based on new approaches to allow low-income populations to protect themselves against risks, and this is which is in fact is showing a major interest, drawing major interest from public players and players from the financial ecosystem. So in our country, as it was underlined by the Honorable Minister of Finance, the development of inclusive insurance is part of the key objectives of the financial inclusion strategy that the Ministry of Finance, and Bank al-Maghrib have developed jointly with the different stakeholders and launched in 2018. The roadmap of this strategy provides three priority areas for this. First one is the development of innovative offers that are particularly tailored to low-income populations, micro enterprises, and micro businesses, with the mobilization of new distribution channels such as microcredit associations and payment institutions. The two others consist in strengthening the insurance offer in the agricultural sector, as well as financial education and communication. In this regard, the Foundation for Financial Education that we created in 2013 is called upon to play a key role in collaboration with ACAPS and the Moroccan Federation of Insurance Companies, and while they are already focusing on the development of a curriculum on inclusive insurance with the purpose of raising the awareness of individuals regarding the importance of the protection of property and persons. From a legal standpoint, the draft law on microfinance aims to broaden these activities to micro savings and by the development of micro insurance products. In the same vein, alongside ACAPS and Bank al-Maghrib, we are striving to implement takaful insurance, a product that conditions the development of participatory finance and that is currently being finalized with the coordination and mobilization of all stakeholders. Ladies and gentlemen, I now would like to address the implications of the paradigm shift that were induced or accelerated by the crisis on the insurance sector. But prior to that, I would like to recall that the role of this sector in the economy, because I believe that is not sufficiently emphasized. In fact, the insurance sector as an industry significantly contributes to the mobilization of savings, particularly in long-term savings, which are crucial for investment and the development of a country such as Morocco. The monetary statistics that Bank al-Maghrib published show that in the financial investments of insurance and reinsurance companies are close to 180 million dirhams. So from this amount, 40 billion are invested in debt and 23 billion are invested in treasury bonds. And so this just goes to show how much they contribute to financing the economy. They also contribute to the dynamic of the stock market, and with an investment of almost 123 billion in the form of shares. And so this data shows that this is clearly a key component of the financial sector that contributes to its development and to its stability. In fact, ACAPS, the regulator of the sector, is a member alongside the Ministry of Finance and AMMC and Bank al-Maghrib of the Coordination Committee of Systemic Risks. This being said, the margins for development of the sector remain quite significant. Indeed, the penetration rate that is measured by the premiums stands at 3.9%. This is one of the highest figures in the region, but remains below what we observe in the advanced economies, where it reaches on average 9% for OECD countries. In addition, the financial data survey conducted by Bank al-Maghrib and the World Bank in 2013 revealed that only 2% of Moroccans have reported taking out non-mandatory insurance products. There are many factors that justify this observation: the poorly tailored offers, the geographical coverage, the poor geographic coverage, the poor knowledge of or poor financial literacy, and especially the low income of the population. So, ladies and gentlemen, the insurance sector, just like other finance and economic activities in general, is currently faced with a paradigm shift today, and deep-rooted changes that have, some of which have started before the crisis. And the crisis, in fact, only catalyzed all of this. One of the major challenges that the insurance industry is faced with today is the low interest rates. This is something that's often forgotten or ignored. These low interest rates don't only have positive repercussions. They do make it possible to relaunch demand and investment, but it also has a negative impact on savings, particularly small savings. And this discussion is a general discussion that you can take a look at what's taking place in Europe and in the ECB with very low or even negative interest rates. It could also weigh upon the balance of the pension funds and could also in the end impact financial stability. Unfortunately, the low interest rate environment is a new reality that insurance market players need to take into account in their strategies and decisions. Indeed, the secular stagnation of the world economy and the inflation that is induced by different structural shifts such as demographics and technology will probably continue to have an impact on interest rates in the future. In the national context, the low interest rates coupled with the stock market constitute a real challenge for the development of savings and certain segments of insurance. And these are challenges that we're very much aware of at the central bank and are part of the criteria for the development of monetary decisions. The second challenge that was underlined by the Honorable Minister is that of climate change, whose repercussions are manifold: floods, droughts, fires, a real awareness that is a lot more generalized of this challenge has led public and private decision makers to take these into account in their decisions. In the financial sector in particular, the greening is a concept that is taking more and more, that is becoming more and more prevalent. And this is something that we're seeing a lot more in the regulation standards. Insurance market players are called upon to adapt and to take ownership of this trend rather than experiencing it in the coming years. So for them, it is a dual challenge to take into account the impact on the environment in their decisions, particularly investment decisions, but also to develop an offer that makes it possible to protect themselves and to ensure coverage from in the face of climate change events. And these are and it is indeed important to coordinate with public players in the framework of public and private partnerships. And this would be the best scenario to handle these issues. So these are changes that are continue to surprise us with their with speed and scope and the depth of their implications. And there's also the digital transformation. This is a revolution that has taken place since a few years, but has continued to accelerate with the crisis, and which has allowed us to see all of the great opportunities that come along with this transformation. I was thinking about remote work, e-banking, e-commerce, and many other fields where technology has disrupted production and consumption modes. Insurance as well is not left aside with this revolution. It is called upon to take it on and to improve its products and its modes of different marketing methods. So this transformation makes it possible to the industry today to better evaluate the risks and to design tailored offers at a fair price. Unfortunately, this transformation does not only have positive implications, but it is also at the origin of one of the most important risks currently and one of the most challenging to overcome, which is cybercrime, which is threatening private companies, public institutions, governments, and individuals. It also poses a major threat to the protection of personal data. One of the most important criteria in social and economic activities for insurers. This is once again the opportunity to protect themselves from these risks, but they also need to design and propose insurance offers that which represents a major potential market that remains to be developed. Ladies and gentlemen, all of these changes, and there are probably many others that will come our way, show that give us a glimpse of the post-COVID world that we are slowly stepping into. The national insurance industry is striving to remain in line with these changes and these paradigm shifts, but the speed with which these are changing require a scaling up of investments, both in terms of technology, but especially in human capital. In this field of human capital is increasingly challenging to attract and especially to retain certain profiles. And given that there's major competition, the national and international markets that is quite tight. And so all of these changes do not only mobilize operators, but also the regulators, such as the ACAPs, the AMMC, and the Bank Al Maghrib. And their role is to anticipate and to allow for sufficient flexibility while ensuring that there is a resilience and stability. For us, it is often a very challenging task to strike a balance, especially given that we are experiencing another challenge, which is that of international standards that are a lot more increasingly stringent. Ladies and gentlemen, today our country, as the Honorable Minister of Finance has underscored, is faced with a new factor which would probably change the social landscape. The project launched by His Majesty the King to broaden social coverage, which is a real revolution, which should allow our country to achieve a leapfrog in human development and to address the structural deficit that has marked the country since its independence. So in this regard, we are all government, regulators, operators called upon to mobilize for the achievement of this project. I'm convinced that the insurance sector that has always ensured that it could contribute to the actions and policies which aim to contribute to the development of our country will be part of this royal vision and strive to achieve its full achievement. I wish great success to your conference and thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you, Honorable Wadi of Bank Al Maghrib. And we will now have the last keynote speaker for this opening session, the Secretary General of the the Secretary General of the ACAPS. This is the regulator of the insurance sector in Morocco. Mr. Atman Khalil Al-Alami, you have the floor.
Honorable Minister, Mr. the President of the Cameroonian insurance companies, the Honorable Wali, Governor of Bank Al Maghreb, ladies and gentlemen, the President, Director Generals, dear audience, it is with an utmost pleasure that I attend this 7th Casablanca Insurance Days under the inclusion in insurance and resistance to pandemic. So topical a field that has wreaked havoc in our societies, destabilizing our economies, and exacerbating the vulnerabilities of the population. Ladies and gentlemen, this major crisis imposes on us to ponder on new alternatives and solutions to very quickly get back to a satisfactory economic and social situation beneficial to the largest number of persons. I'd like to thank the organizers for the very relevant choice of the theme for inclusive insurance and resistance to pandemic. If we were to lean on Morocco's situation, the COVID-19 pandemic has doubtless highlighted and exacerbated the vulnerabilities of walks of the population without safety nets. The protection and the coverage of this population already as a priority in our country has become even more obvious during this crisis. We can only grant ourselves pride that our kingdom, under the high leadership of His Majesty King Mohammed VI, has initiated the financial inclusion strategy through the National Strategy of Financial Inclusion SNIF, whose roadmap provides for a specific aspect for inclusive insurance. In this respect, I would like to share with you some of the definitions. According to the International Associations of ICA Insurance Controllers, Morocco being an active member, inclusive insurance is defined as being all of the products of insurance intended to the markets that are excluded or ill-served in general, rather than targeting exclusively the poor or the persons with a low income, and it's a very small significance. Now, for this access to insurance initiative A2I, with which we contribute assiduously, insurance can bring the difference, a real difference in the life of the populations by protecting them against and hedging them against a variety of risks and allowing them to tap into several possibilities for greater and better assistance. And the challenge ahead of us is big. In 2019, with our partners, the Ministry of Finance and the Federation, we have initiated a study conducted by the Desjardins International firm, one of the rare firms specializing in this field, and which has revealed that demand for inclusive insurance is very important and mostly relating to the target groups. By way of example, those youth between 18 and 25 and more than 65 years of age, and women in the households, housewives, and very small enterprises. Altogether, these groups account for about 80% of the Moroccan population. The protection and the coverage that the insurance can bring to this population are various and leave it for a promising development on this market when one knows that by 2020's end, 1,600,000 contracts of microinsurance have been marketed in Morocco. Even we see here and there thrive new promising offers. Now, the ACAPS, the authority, has included the inclusive insurance as a priority avenue, thanks to the different activities or partners and players in SNIF. We work together with all of the partners in order to cause the regulatory framework evolve in order for it to support the development of insurance. We are including mainstreaming regulatory changes for streamlining the contracts of microinsurance through the limitation of exclusions, a timeline for reduced compensation timeline, and also case of claims, the widening of distribution channels, including through the payment institutions. By way of example, a project of a circular by ACAPS has been sent for homologation to the Ministry of Finance. We rest assured that the success of this activity depends on the implementation of adapted and well-targeted activities. As a matter of fact, financial inclusion in the field of promotion of insurance, inclusive insurance, is paramount because it makes it possible to lift the cognitive barriers that may still exist. In this respect, we work in close collaboration with the financial Moroccan Federation for Financial Inclusion and also FMACR for the development of financial inclusion programs, as well as the designing of specific action plans to target the relevant populations. We are indeed very quite satisfied of this fruitful collaboration. Now, the endeavors of all of the stakeholders in this project will certainly lead to rolling out financial inclusion programs, which, as I hope and reckon, will have the good impact. We also are keen on launching an annual penetration rate study, which will allow us to take stock of the situation through the setup of a barometer with the target populations of the different initiatives with a view to their likely adjustment to strengthen and to build our capacities in II, inclusive insurance. Morocco, with 3 other countries, is participating by the countries of Argentina, India, and Rwanda. This is an international capacity building program within framework of which our teams are working to design innovative solutions to allow the development of their insurance sector and market develop more, and most particularly inclusive insurance. I rest assured that the works will only be beneficial for our collective action in the field of insurance will only be stronger. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The pandemic of the coronavirus has recalled on us the necessity and the urgency to implement inclusive solutions and coverage solutions to the most financially distressed population. Now, the sector of the insurance cannot be an exception, and it has to undertake an in-depth examination of its resilience in the face of such events. As you know, the insurance operation is based on the risk identification, the evaluation and assessment of its likelihood, and the magnitude of whatever claims that may occur. The insurance is also based on the pooling and the diversification risks. Though the pandemic risks we are suffering still today challenges all of these principles, but mostly redesigns and resketches the situation. According to the recent Geneva Association study having to do with the insurability of the pandemic risk, the question of the solvency and insurability of life and non-life would not been caused without the insurance, without the pandemic cross, because these insurance have continued to play fully their role of protection and support to the persons and communities thus affected. It would have been otherwise for damage insurance companies because of the many questions raised and whose pitfalls have been certainly outcried. According to the same publication, less than 1% of the global losses is assessed at 4,500 billion American dollars for the year 2020 only, and has been paid for loss of operation with premiums of about $30 billion worldwide. The loss of operation insurance is a niche within the damage insurance, which generates close to $1,600 billion premiums wise. By aligning the figures, it seems that the damage insurance can compensate all of the losses caused by the discontinuity of business, as has been the case during the periods of lockdowns caused by the pandemic. The pandemic crisis has caused the debate on the limits of insurability to become essential, leading therefore the public authorities and public operators and the society in its entirety to ponder on solutions that have to be designed. We think, as far as we are concerned, that the responses must stem from a partnerial logic, including public authorities and operators, according to the coverage of the consequences of catastrophic events mentioned as an example today. Launched since the 1st of January 2020, this scheme of coverage of catastrophic risks sets up a dual indemnification scheme, one insurance-based to the benefit of the victims having insurance contracts, and the other one solidarity-based and an allocation-based to the benefit of natural persons deprived of any coverage. It offers today viable solutions for the population facing risks that may be of great magnitude, such as the earthquakes or floods. This system on the scheme represents a fruitful collaboration between public and private partners, and it is possible to devise for the pandemic scenario or one of the corollary risks to devise mechanisms to offer a wide range of protection and hedging for a maximum number of persons, thereby increasing the resilience of our economies. Coming back now to the pandemic crisis, and if we would only draw some lessons, I would say that the sturdiness and the stability and solidity of insurance has become an unavoidable stake and challenge in order for the insurers to continue being resilient and have the necessary leeway and margin of maneuvers allow them to face whatever unaccounted for. Now, the sector's vulnerability has gone high, which leads us to strengthen our net worth and our stockholders' equity through the different instruments and levers being offered once the interest of committing ourselves resolutely in solvency project based on risks, indeed adapted each and every time to the local realities. On a medium term, the insurance sector must devise new hedging and insurance coverage related to the loss of employment, cyber attacks, telework, and etc. In a medium term, still, we can still ponder on designing a hedging mechanism against the pandemic risk that could lead to a partnership-based dynamic between operator and authorities to allow our societies to be stronger and more resilient vis-a-vis these risks. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that these reflections will contribute to enrich the debate of this edition of the Casablanca Insurance Days, Le Rendez-vous de Casablanca. I would finish my word by Leonard da Vinci saying the rigor comes always on atop of the obstacle, and to take into account the current situation, we can allow ourselves the luxury to talk about the rigor and the spirit of innovation always come ahead or come on top of any impediment. I would like to thank you very much, wishing you a nice day. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alalami, for this very insightful speech. And thank you for closing with a little poetry and mentioning and quoting Leonardo da Vinci. It brings some freshness in the discourse. Thank you very much. So let me go back to the country of honor and talk to Mr. Badu. Tell him this is not a first, is it? It has been a long-standing tradition. Every year and every edition, we put the spotlight on a partner country. Yes, very much so. Africa is at the very heart of the concern of the Rendez-vous de l'Assurance, or the insurance yearly edition. So every year we strive to have a guest of honor at the rendezvous, and unfortunately, the sanitary crisis and health crisis has prevented us from having senior people in attendance physically. But earlier on, in the opening speech, the president mentioned that we have received and welcomed a lot of African presidents and welcomed a lot of African countries. And let's hope that by 2022 we'll be freed from this COVID nightmare and come back to a normal life, a regular life. But if it's not in 2022, we will kind of make and save a date and make a moment to sign this cooperation agreement. So as soon as possible, we'll be signing a MOU, a convention. What kind of cooperation could we actually have with a country like Cameroon? And the Minister of Finance earlier on referred to the quality of relationship between states, interstate relationships. So as a federation, what kind of relationship you're thinking of? Well, actually, we think together and jointly under our joint regulatory frameworks what it is that we can bring them and what kind of take back solutions we can learn. So in the insurance world, there is so much to know and learn. And one of the main coverages that we have a longstanding experience on that is of a key interest to our African friends is the car insurance. And the system of compensation in Morocco is well ahead and very, very advanced compared to other countries. And the African countries very regularly request us our assistance when someone is victim of a car accident instead of calling or having to go with the life insurance. They actually talk to us. And in a federation, we have a compensation scheme and fund to actually offset and compensate the claims. And this is a topic that is of a key interest to our Cameroonese friends. And there's another system, the bonus malus system. So a driver that will see his insurance claims increase and top to the top, to the ceiling, and that he can benefit from a laydown. So in Tunisia, we did that. We started a risk hub. And we did that in some other countries by adapting these Moroccan solutions to the local realities and context. So we're not going to copy paste, but we're going to adapt to local realities. So what kind of learning lessons we can take? Well, beware, in Africa there are a lot of very good experiences with a lot of digital experience and mobile experience, so we are very interested to know more and learn more from the African continents, how the insurance inclusion was taken on board and what kind of implementation schemes were put forward. So we try to adapt that at home. We're having a lot of talks with federations that are very much ahead compared to others, with the World Federation, but with our African counterparts and colleagues, we kind of get together and try to think ahead over the 3-4 coming years and figure out what kind of exchange system we can put in place, what are the best practices we can learn from them, and what it is that they can learn from us. So I'd like to take this opportunity to greet everyone, those who are watching us or listening to us in a lot of African in the 5 continents around the world, and namely the African continents, and more importantly, the our friend Cameroon and the Cameroon experience. Well,
Merci en tout
well, thank you very much indeed, Ms. Bashir Badou, for all these clarifications. And now we go to Théophile Giramoulon, and I'd like to say that you are the president of the Cameroon Federation, and you are the managing director of life insurance in Cameroon. You have the floor. Honorable Minister of Economy, Finance, and Reform of the Administration of the Kingdom of Morocco, Honorable President of the Moroccan Federation of Insurance and Reinsurance Companies, Honorable President of the National Insurance Company and Social Security of Morocco, Honorable Senior Managers of Insurance and Reinsurance Companies, ladies and gentlemen, and brokers, insurance brokers, distinguished guests, and all honors insured. Allow me, first of all, to convey to you the gratitude of the Cameroonese market of insurance for the honor that is made to insurance to Cameroon to be a guest of honor, an honor at the honor of the this new edition of the Casablanca Insurance on the theme resilience, inclusion, and resistance and resilience to the pandemic. I'd like to thank you all for this great initiative. Maybe I would like to walk you through my country and have you have a sense of important data on my country. My country is a Gulf of Guinea country located on the north facade of Africa, 350,000 kilometers of a coast along the Atlantic coast, with an overall surface of 442 square kilometers and a population of 27 million people in 2020. Cameroon has a triangle shape, is circumvented by the following countries: Nigeria in West Guinea, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon and Republic of Congo in the south, Central African Republic in the east, and Chad in the north. The country is located between the southern meridional coast and borders of Sahara and Equatorial Guinea in the south. The rest of the country is highly dominated by the high plains and contains the mountains, highest mountains in the center of Africa. Mount Cameroon, that is called the Chariot of God, is culminating at 910 meters. It is the highest summit of the African continent in terms of height. The east of Cameroon is covered or recovered largely by equatorial forests. Prior to the colonial period, several social organizations would coexist along a kingdom that were structured around nomads. The old kingdom Bado Bujomo, after this kingdom, they actually succeeded in the 9th century. The German colony that brings the state, or brings to life the state of Cameroon. In the aftermath of the Second World War II, Cameroon is put under the tutorship of the Society of Nations and entrusted to the French administration in its eastern part, and to the United Kingdom for its western part. The former UN mandate under the French administration accesses to the independence under the qualification and name of Republic of Cameroon in 1960. It is joined by Western Cameroon, part of the territory under the British rule, on the 1st of October 1961. In order to form the Federal Republic of Cameroon, that on the 20th of May 1972 is renamed United Republic of Cameroon, and then later on Republic of Cameroon in 1984. Like most African states, the current borders of Cameroon result from European colonies that have split tribes, and the same tribes like the Fambeti in Cameroon that found themselves today in Cameroon, in Gabon, and in Equatorial Guinea. Cameroon is today a full-fledged member of the International Organization of the Francophonie of the Commonwealth, as well as to the Organization of Islamic Conference. It is surnamed the miniature Africa because of its ecological, climate, mining, geographic, cultural, and human typology and geography. You most know the culture of arts, sports, and food like Borgila, Tomonkolo, Samorito in soccer and football, Sampo Bango in athleticism and running, Yannick Noah in tennis, Shohal Embiid, Rue Richard, Bahamute, and Pascal Siakam at the NBA, Francis Ngannou, since last weekend has become world champion of highway category, Richard, Banu, and late Bagu Minango, the pandemic has called back, and because of the pandemic, he has passed away, and we actually pay tribute to his memory. So, from the political standpoint, the President of the Republic is His Excellency Mr. Paul Biya, and the Prime Minister, Head of Government, Mr. Chief John Bute. They are actually, we have a bicameral parliament composed by the Senate and the low chamber National Assembly. The official languages are French and English, and we have several national languages spoken by over 200 ethnic groups. The capital is Yaoundé, and Douala is the economic capital. Cameroon has over 400 political parties. The national officer of the Ministry of Communication says that in Cameroon, 350 newspapers and 500 TV channels and radios. From the economic standpoint, the Cameroonese economy is by far the most resilient of Western Africa. Notwithstanding its high vulnerability and very high dependence of the world prices of raw materials. To be added to this, there is the persistence of the crisis, namely the social and economic crisis in the northern regions and southeast regions, as well as the incursions of the Boko Haram terrorist groups in the north of the country. The growth rate is under 1.1% in 2020, a major drop compared to 2019, where it was about 3.7%. We may note that Moroccan companies are strongly involved in the insurance sector, in the banking sector, in the construction and cement industry. And these sectors that have been hard hit by COVID and the financial world crisis, this is how the Cameroon has become a member of the global or African insurance companies. And its global production has gone from 200 billion of French CFAs to 280 billion in French CFAs. The non-life insurance is a very important share of the Cameroonese market, compared to 43% of the life insurance. Members of the Association of ASAP, the 28 insurance companies that we need to add, the 3 representations of reinsurance companies, total 1,400 direct jobs. We have 140 brokers and brokerage companies, as well as 105 general agents. The changes and global changes of the Cameroonese market on insurance inclusion and resilience to pandemic is highly marked by the major challenges of the insurance markets that is actually growing under the prism of digitalization, mobile digitalization, and regulation. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, digitalization of all insurance processes in all organizations has gone from the complementary need to a real urgency and The insurance sector has not been spared by the digitalization of the world. Mobile payment, automation of claims, identification, and risk assessment. All this digitalization has become business as usual and have become a normal thing. And we need to integrate and fully grasp that digitalization is not a fashion, but it's a matter of survival. It's not a generation problem. One of the major lessons that we have drawn from the organizational adjustments carried out by the Cameroonese insurance companies, namely in the light of sectorial studies recorded on the second quarter of 2020 after the first wave of the pandemic, led to the need to speed up and scale up the sector by pulling together all the efforts that have been done. We're also learning to live with the pandemic and its variants and make sure we give the best services possible to our clients while promoting the sector. This is how we're going to be overcoming future challenges in case there are future pandemic around the world. On the regulatory standpoint, and despite the occurrence of inclusion insurance, and after the adoption in April 2012 of the new regulation relating to micro-insurance operations by the Cabinet and Council of Ministers in charge of the CIMA countries, led to the conclusion that the insurance sector can actually promote economic development of sub-Saharan countries. The penetration rate of the insurance countries in the CIMA countries, the provision of the provisions that have been enacted lately to regulate mobile promotion, and namely micro-insurancing to the public. 8 years later, this enactment, the Council has seen the evolution of this branch, and the results are actually mitigated. Today, we can hope that digital mutations and changes that are forced by the occurrence of COVID-19 will encourage insurance companies to bringing inclusive insurance projects. As a matter of fact, the assessment that was done during the market forums in 2018 has shown that the occurrence and promotion of digital technology and alternative channels brings the hope that the insurance sector will witness better days and a better future as long as the necessary adjustments are done, namely the regulation of electronic insurance in the region. A large project of sanitation and of refurbishment of the automobile insurance sector has been started by Cameroon, namely centralization and digitalization of the underwriting platform of the joint underwriting, change of colors of accreditations, digital control, etc. The setting up of a central registry of aggravated risks that is an additional motive to fight fraud in the insurance sector and scaling up of the modernization process. The system
des assurés, en abrégé à IDA, matériel,
The ceiling for now is 100,000 CFAs that has been largely inspired by the Moroccan model. As far as the model and health sector is concerned, another clause on medical insurance has been deployed and is clearly one major step forward towards a health department, a health pole, as this is urged by CIMA to reduce the deficit in this branch. Negotiation of prices and tariffs and harmonized prices with different trade unions of providers and fund providers will allow us to get closer to this final outcome and objective. In addition to this, we try to strongly get involved in some government project of universal health coverage to give a better visibility to the health and medical insurance coverage and scheme and increase the penetration rate of the insurance sector. Also, the market engage in the co-coverage of co-insurance of large national risks. The CAM 2022 is one of the leading experience in this regard. Honorable Minister of Economy and Finance. Of the reform and reforms of the Kingdom of Morocco, Honorable President of the Moroccan Federation of Reassurance Companies, Honorable Secretary, General Secretary of the Authority of Control and Insurance and Social Security of the Kingdom of Morocco. Ladies and gentlemen, in a tireless effort of synthesis, Cameroon is striving to turn its insurance sector into a promising one. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much to the Honorable Chair Moulong. Ladies and gentlemen, we are reaching the end of this opening ceremony. I would like to thank all of the personalities that have honored us with their presence for this Casablanca Insurance meeting. And in a way, through this hybrid mode, we are still striving to conduct this meeting in these challenging circumstances to see how in the insurance will need to shift to adapt to these to this trying time. So at 1400 hours, we'll have a presentation by Don Forgeron, who will be here with us from Canada. He's the president of the Global Federation of Insurance Associations, and we'll have a panel that will discuss the questions relating to the inclusive nature of insurance and how we can innovate to ensure that we can have innovative and inclusive insurance. So all of those, for those of you that are involved in this sector, well, you are all invited to join in on this session, and you're all invited to visit the different booths to discover all of the novelties in your sector. Also, until then, please stay safe, and I look forward to reconnecting with you later on. Thank you.
Bienvenue dans le rendez-vous de Casablanca de l'assurance. Un format inédit, une approche collective et innovante, une scène internationale. Bienvenue dans un univers d'innovation et d'expertise autour des métiers de l'assurance et de la réassurance.
Welcome to the Casablanca Insurance Meeting, a new format, a collective and innovative approach, an international scene. Welcome to a world of innovation and expertise around the insurance and reinsurance businesses.
Malgré toutes nos différences, il y a tellement de choses qui nous rapprochent. Comme la passion qui nous unit d'une même voix, ou quelques mots qui, sans parler, disent tout. Quand la confiance est là, compter ne compte plus. Mais quand la bienveillance est là, c'est tout ce qui compte. Un coup de main se manifeste en un coup d'œil, et peu importe le contretemps, il arrive toujours à temps. Parce que plus on se rapproche, plus la vie devient facile. Aujourd'hui, Atlanta et Sanad s'unissent pour que l'assurance soit plus simple et toujours plus proche de vous.
Atlanta Sanad Assurance, la vie nous rapproche.
Parce que ce qui nous anime, ce qui nous transcende, ce qui nous fait porter la réassurance aux frontières du possible et au-delà, notre mission, notre vision, nos valeurs, c'est ce que l'on a de plus précieux, notre monde. Et si nous bâtissions ce monde uni pour un futur plus prospère, positif, radieux, responsable, généreux, altruiste, sûr, si nous marquions le monde de demain de notre empreinte, créateur de résilience depuis 1960, nous avons une vision, devenir la référence de la réassurance dans les marchés émergents. Depuis notre création, nous tirons vers le haut notre ambition pour répondre aux exigences de nos clients et partenaires au Maroc et à l'international. Leader de la réassurance au Maroc, nous marquons de notre empreinte l'économie nationale en jouant un rôle central dans l'écosystème de l'assurance et de la réassurance au niveau national et régional, et en étant une institution financière solide, bénéficiant d'un excellent rating. Opérant dans plus de 50 marchés avec plus de 300 clients, nous mettons en avant notre savoir-faire, notre expertise afin d'offrir à nos clients et partenaires la meilleure prestation. Nous visons à être inspirés et inspirants, à partager notre savoir-faire, à accompagner de par le monde à travers la fondation SCR Académie Ré, les idées qui viennent d'éclore vers le chemin des réalisations dont nous sommes si fiers. SCR, créateur de résilience depuis 1960. Bienvenue dans le rendez-vous de Casablanca de l'assurance. Un format inédit, une approche collective et innovante, une scène internationale. Bienvenue dans un univers d'innovation et d'expertise autour des métiers de l'assurance et de la réassurance.
Welcome to the Casablanca Insurance Meeting, a new format, a collective and innovative approach, an international scene. Welcome to a world of innovation and expertise around the insurance and reinsurance businesses.
Malgré toutes nos différences, il y a tellement de choses qui nous rapprochent. Comme la passion qui nous unit d'une même voix, ou quelques mots qui, sans parler, disent tout. Quand la confiance est là, compter ne compte plus. Mais quand la bienveillance est là, c'est tout ce qui compte. Un coup de main se manifeste en un coup d'œil, et peu importe le contretemps, il arrive toujours à temps. Parce que plus on se rapproche, plus la vie devient facile. Aujourd'hui, Atlanta et Sanad s'unissent pour que l'assurance soit plus simple et toujours plus proche de vous.
Atlanta Sanad Assurance, la vie nous rapproche.
Parce que ce qui nous anime, ce qui nous transcende, ce qui nous fait porter la réassurance,